I scaled my logistics company, Pride Logistics Co., to just over 200 employees in 3 years. And the biggest growth move that I ever made was firing myself from the positions that I never should have been involved in the first place. When I did that, that freed me up to open my second location, and that doubled my income quickly. See, one manager became two dispatchers became 4, 35 delivery vehicles became 70, and my routes doubled too. Dang near overnight, the complexity of my logistics company doubled, and that's when I realized that this business could never survive or even grow more if it depended solely on me. If you're a business owner that feels trapped in your business because you're an operator and not really an owner, this video is for you. From 2020 to 2023, I was running a logistics company. And when I say running a logistics company, I was literally doing everything. I handled everything from fleet management, scheduling, onboarding new hires, interviews, getting candidates in the door, payroll, delivery devices, vendor relationships, company culture, accident management, and even insurance issues. I was literally doing everything. I was the highest paid operator at the company. On paper, I was the owner. In reality though, I was the highest paid operator at my company. And here's the most dangerous part. I told myself that was leadership. I told myself that that was the way to scale and that's how it needed to be in order to grow this big successful company. Here's the problem that nobody talks about. The issue wasn't that I was working too hard. I know that social media likes to glorify, you gotta work really hard in order to make it work. No, that's not the problem. The problem is that you're working too hard in the wrong roles. See, because I was buried in daily operations, systems never improved, processes stayed very fragile, and everything depended on me. When everything depends on you, everything stops and nothing advances. This is a business killer. The biggest problem too that this created was I couldn't work on the business because I was too busy working inside of the business. Now, if you're thinking in your head, what are you talking about? You just did everything in the company. Yes, I did. I was working inside of the business. That's the biggest difference between an operator and an owner. An owner works on the business, innovates, makes the company better. An operator works inside of the business. They do the daily operations. They do the busy work. The part that took me the longest to admit was that it wasn't my team's fault either. It was my problem. Things weren't getting done because of me, not them. Now, how do you know if you're clipping your team's wings? See, I thought being involved every single day was a good business owner. What I realized is it slowed the progress of my team. If everything had to run through me, that's when it stopped or when it slowed down. You can't scale and you can't build a big business if that's how things operate. So here is 2 ways that I know now that I was clipping my team's wings and how you can know for sure. Number 1 is every decision still runs through you. This is a huge problem. If every decision still runs through you, you are clipping your team's wings and you aren't empowering your employees who you pay money to make a decision. Now, if you're thinking in your head, they can't make that decision or they're not capable of it, you have the wrong people in the wrong place. The other way that I knew that I was clipping my team's wings was every problem landed on my desk. There was no SOPs, there was no processes, there wasn't anything. The process was, if you have a question or you need something done, throw it on the boss's desk, he'll take care of it. This slows things down. You will never be able to scale, you'll never be able to get things done at the pace that you need to get them done if everything has to run through you. There's too much stuff. There's way too much stuff. You need a team. You need to empower your team and have them make the decisions. Now, this whole thing derives because you haven't empowered your team and you haven't given them permission to own their domain and own their outcomes. Now, the interesting psychology behind this is that I did trust my team the whole time. That wasn't the problem. The problem was I didn't trust that anyone could do the work better than I could. I didn't trust that the company could run without me. Now, let me share a secret. If you feel like you're indispensable at the company, you're the bottleneck and you're the reason you're not scaling. Here's the moment that changed everything. I had a mindset shift. Now, I paid big money. Let me paint the picture for you. I paid $50,000 to be at this mastermind event. And I was there physically, but I was on my phone, I was texting, I was answering questions, I was putting out fires because, remember, my employees, my team couldn't make decisions without approval from me, right? So during this mastermind event, he's talking about how to scale and how to do all this stuff. And I'm sitting there going, this doesn't work in my business. So naturally I raised my hand and I said, hey, what do you do if you want to scale your business like you're talking about, but no one else can do it as good as you? And he smiles for a minute and he goes, you really think that no one can do what you're doing as good as you can? And I said, yeah, I'm the owner of the company. No one cares as much as I care. He goes, okay, that may be true, but they can do it just as good as you can if you give them the proper tools, SOPs, processes, systems, and help them along that path so they can make an educated decision. After that constructive criticism, I went back to my place and I pondered upon the things that I just received, the constructive criticism, right? And I knew I wanted to open a second location, but I knew I couldn't do it if I was the one doing everything. And so I made the decision to empower my team. I went back, I had a weekly management meeting, and at that time it was my one main manager, my 2 dispatchers, and 1 assistant. And I told them, I said, look, things are gonna change. I'm going to empower you. You're gonna have ownership of your own area, and with that ownership comes responsibilities, comes more money, comes bonuses. We talked about everything, and they were excited. I realized in that moment that I was being a control freak, 100%. I was clipping their wings because I wasn't empowering them. They were now excited to show up to work. They had ownership of their own domain. They could make decisions. They could get work done. And let me tell you, it opened up doors that I never saw coming. After that meeting, it finally clicked. I didn't need to work harder or be there more to open up a second location. I needed to fire myself from doing all the wrong things and empower my team so that they could get it done even if I wasn't there. And that's how I was gonna open up a second location. Here's what firing myself actually meant. It didn't mean walking away and never being available again. It meant changing what I touch every single day. Changing how I interact with the business and what I focus my attention on. First, I stopped being involved in daily operations. If something broke, I didn't jump in to fix it. Second, I stopped being the approval machine. If someone needed my sign off on something, that means I haven't built enough clarity around that certain subject for them to look into the processes in order to get the topic done, which was a good thing. That means I could go back to the drawing board, I could innovate, I could build my SOPs around that. Third is I stopped being the safety net. Now what I mean by this is I stopped being the one that everyone came to. If my main manager had a problem and he had a question, yes, he came to me. But if one of my dispatchers had a question or a problem, they go to the person above them. If a driver had a problem, they most likely are going to a dispatcher or to my main right-hand man, right? That doesn't mean that I'm not available. I still let everybody know that I'm available. But I have systems and processes in place, and people own different scenarios and different areas of the business. That's who they need to go to. See, if you have too many cooks in the kitchen per se, and one person says this, the other person says it a little bit differently, or they answer the question entirely wrong, you have a lot of confused employees. Make sure that the person who's answering the questions knows the answer and that they're the one that are giving it. Now, here's what I did with my time instead of doing those things that I just listed. Number 1 is I spent my time building systems instead of solving emergencies. Number 2 is I trained leaders instead of managing tasks. I focused my time on making sure my managers, my dispatchers understood the root underlying cause of things so that they could make their own educated decision, which they were perfectly capable of. Some of them needed more training on how to delegate. Some of them needed more training on how to see the root cause of a problem. Everyone's got their pros and cons, their strengths and weaknesses, right? Put them in the correct spot and then coach them up, build them up into how you want them to own their own area of the business. The third thing is I created accountability instead of checking work. And the fourth was I set standards instead of fixing mistakes. The biggest thing is I stopped trying to be the hero or the operator, and I decided to be the architect of the business or the owner. You see, if you don't decide what you're not going to do in your own business, the business will decide for you and it always picks the wrong thing. If you're watching this and you need something actionable, or better yet, I want you to put down in the comments in this part of the video 3 things that you know you should be doing as the owner this next upcoming week. Everything else, delegate. Empower your team. Get them to do that. It'll be scary at first. It'll be rocky at first. But as you have the conversation with your team, as you empower them, as you coach them, as you delegate, they're gonna be happier, they're gonna stay longer, and they're gonna love their job. Put down in the comments the 3 things that you need to be doing as an owner and everything else that you're gonna delegate out. Now, what happened next after I empowered my team? Well, I'm glad you asked. Decisions got faster. Stress dropped dramatically for me and my family. The business stopped depending on my presence. And here's the part that people don't expect. The company got better when I wasn't touching everything. Remember that systems scale, ego does not. Ego kills businesses. Now, if you're watching this and still thinking, no one can do it like me, I'll delegate later, I just need to hire one more person, that was me. And until you change that mindset, you, as the business operator, will always be the bottleneck of your own company. You will never be able to scale with that mindset. Remember, your job as a business owner is not to do the work every single day. It's to build a company and a culture where everything runs without you and that everyone is happy to show up to earn their income. If this video hit home, make sure to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and hit the notification bell. That will help me out tremendously. This channel is all about helping operators become owners. I've been there and I've done that. I was an operator for years and now I'm an owner, and let me tell you, it is so much better. Remember that in order to scale, the first person that you need to fire is yourself.